Alright, this is big. The commission is finally stepping in to clean up one of the messiest parts of MMA, how fights are scored. They're not throwing out the entire system, but they're trying to make it clearer, especially for the judges, which is hilarious in itself. Think about that things have gotten so bad, they need to rewrite the rulebook just so judges can understand what they're watching. And honestly, it's about time. Because half the time, you really wonder if these judges even know what they're looking at. The commission seems to realize that a lot of these bad decisions aren't just incompetence. It might also be because the current criteria is too vague. So now they're trying to remove that ambiguity, make things more black and white, tamed. And I've always said that's the biggest issue with MMA scoring. How arbitrary and interpretive it can be. But let's be real, you're never going to fully eliminate subjectivity when you've got 3 people with different perspectives scoring the same fight. Still, what they're proposing is a step in the right direction. These changes aren't official, yet they'll be voted on in August. And if passed, we might see them implemented later this year. So, what's changing? For starters, they're adding the word damage all over the scoring criteria. Damage has always been part of the equation, impact, but now they're being way more explicit about it. They're spelling it out repeatedly. So judges know exactly what they should be looking for. Here's how they define damage now. Legal fighting techniques, the result of which lessen an opponent's capacity and/or will to compete. That includes knockdowns, concussive strikes, legal hits that make your opponent retreat or go into a shell, and of course, visual injuries, swelling, cuts, hematomas, bruising, anything that shows you actually hurt the guy. They also mention submission attempts that hyperextend joints, cause rotational damage, or choke the opponent into visible distress. Basically, they're getting super specific, so judges stop rewarding fighters for just controlling positions or throwing volume with no real effect. And here's a key phrase: damage is not an action. It's the result of effective fighting. That's powerful, because it moves the focus away from just activity to what actually matters, hurting your opponent. It also says immediate damage is more important than cumulative damage within a round. Which makes sense. If you rock your opponent badly once, that should matter more than tapping him 30 times with leg kicks that don't slow him down. Although, I do wish they made cumulative damage clearer. Like, what if one guy lands 30 clean shots and the other lands 10 harder ones? That still leaves room for interpretation. But this is still way better than what we had. They're also defining dominance now, which is huge. Dominance is basically when one fighter has clear control through positioning, action, or volume over a sustained period of time, and It has to lead to potential fight-ending scenarios. It's not just being in a good position, it's what you do with it. And this part is amazing. Merely holding a dominant position shall not be considered demonstrating dominance. Finally, just laying on a guy and stalling is not enough. Anymore, you've got to be working strikes, submissions, something that shows you're trying to end the fight. That's a massive nerve to control heavy wrestlers who coast. They're also redefining duration. Not just how long you're in control, but how much of the round you spend imposing your game effectively. So, when they say dominance with duration, they mean you were winning and active for most of the round, not just a quick flurry. Then they clarify successful striking and grappling. Successful striking equals damage. Easy, successful grappling equals takedowns, reversals, submission attempts, or dominant positions that lead to damage. So you can't just get a takedown and lay in guard anymore. If you're not doing anything damaging with it, it shouldn't count. They also outline what to do when judges can't decide who won the round. First, they check striking and grappling. If that's dead even then, I mean absolutely equal, then they go to aggressiveness. And if that's also even, then they look at cage control. Who dictated the pace, location, and position of the fight? Seems like they're now treating aggressiveness and control as equal last resorts, instead of ranking them second and third, like before. And just like always, the 10-point must system is staying. So 10 to 9 rounds are still the default. 10-10s. Basically, never happening unless the round is incomplete. Judges scoring a completed round 10-10 are now considered to have failed to adjudicate. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. 2-8 rounds. The new definition is way stricter. To score a 10-8, a fighter must show significant damage and be dominant with duration. All three need to show up if you're using dominance to score the round. Just holding position or being active for 1 minute won't cut it. But tanned, this is key significant. Damage by itself can still be enough for a 10-8. So, if you almost finish the fight, even without dominance or duration, that's still a 10-8. They're just making it harder to award. 10-8 South, 4 control-based rounds with no real damage. And get this, even if a fighter has dominant position and is landing some damage, that might still not be enough for a 10-8. They have to show significant damage strikes that are close to ending the fight, or cumulative damage that visibly affects the opponent's energy, confidence, or stamina. Wrestlers, you're officially nerfed. If you're just laying in full mount with baby punches, don't expect a 10-8. And now, 10 to 7 South. These are 4 rounds where one fighter dishes out overwhelming damage and domination throughout the entire round. Basically, the other guys still breathing by a miracle. You need all 3: damage, dominance, and duration. And even then, it's rare. Honestly, I think they should make 10 to 8 South and 10 to 7 South easier to give out. Not every round is a 10 to 9. There's a huge difference between a close round and someone getting mauled for 5 minutes. But they're still scored the same way most of the time. They've also added some clarity around technical decisions. Like if a fight is stopped due to a foul or accidental injury after a majority of the rounds are completed, it goes to the scorecards. And if there were any point deductions from fouls, those get subtracted from the totals. They even reiterate defense is not scored. Only offensive actions matter when determining who wins a round. All in all, these changes are pretty solid. They're not overhauling the system, just refining it to make it easier for judges to understand and harder for them to mess up. But here's the thing, they're still the same judges. They're just giving these people a clearer manual, but they're not changing who's reading it. That's still a huge problem. A lot of these judges have no real background in MMA. Some are still boxing judges who've never trained a day in their lives. Remember that clip Joe Rogan mentioned? He literally looked over at a judge mid-fight and she wasn't even watching. These are people deciding fighters' careers, win bonuses, rankings, title shots, everything's on the line. And yet, the judging pool is so small, we all know their names. Like seriously, who's the best MMA judge? Junichiro Komio, Mike Bell, Sal D'Amato, and even they have blunders. So, while these proposed changes are great, they don't fix the core issue, bad judges still being allowed to judge. But I do think the changes are going to pass. It's not a radical rewrite, it's more like an update to eliminate confusion. And hopefully, it makes things a little bit better, even if we're still stuck with the same people reading the script.